What is going on, guys? I am back with another hardcore Nuzlocke, and this one admittedly took a little bit too long to get out. The holidays and my lack of planning got the best of me, but I will talk about that a little bit later in the video because we've got Nuzlocke to get through. So let's go ahead and dive into this electric type only hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Shield. Electric type Pokemon tend to be fast special sweepers, with some outliers being decently bulky while also being able to dish out reliable damage. Having only one weakness in the ground type, electric types are a pretty solid choice if you can find a way to circumvent that weakness by using Pokemon with Levitate or by using flying electric types. Luckily in Shield, we get access to quite a few electric types that actually have the Levitate ability and one that is part flying, which gives us 3 Pokemon that are totally immune to ground attacks. Now with all of these fine Pokemon at our disposal, I think we'll have a pretty good run on our hands. So with the intro out of the way, let's go ahead and beat Pokemon Shield using only electric types. Now because I'm pretty sure everyone here has seen the 15-minute intro of these games, we're going to jump right to the point where we grab our starter. For this run, I chose Sobble, so that way Hop ends up with Cinderace, which will add an extra level of difficulty with its insanely high attack and speed stats. But also, that means Leon will end up with Rillaboom, which will resist my Pokemon stab electric attacks, therefore making this run as difficult as possible for me because I hate myself. With hard mode enabled, we jump straight over to Route 1, where we will be getting our first encounter, a Grubbin that we will aptly be naming Cell. With a little perfectionist android insect in hand, we meet Leon at the Pokemon lab, where he shows us exactly why he'll most likely die alone, as the only good thing he has to say about women is that they make good cooks. Like Sonia was a whole rival for this man, and all he can say is she cooks good. After the hashtag Leon is over party, we grab some new threads at the store and make our way onto Route 2, where we get our second encounter and the first actual electric type Pokemon that we can use, a Yamper. Now I'm not gonna lie, I forgot that Grubbin doesn't actually get the electric typing until it evolves into Charjabug, so I end up using Grubbin to battle Yamper here, and while recording I realized Cell isn't electric type when it gets paralyzed. And now as you can see, I'm hella confused, so I had to double check Cell's typing and I realized I am a Dunsparce. We eventually catch the Yamper and name it Goten. Now I want you guys to know that I am completely disregarding any and all genders of the Pokemon when I give them the nicknames in this run, because I have these names predetermined in a spreadsheet and I will not have gender get in the way of my planning. So this good girl right here is Goten. Now with my gender spiel out of the way, we confront Hop in front of Professor Magnolia's house for a rematch. Now I'm only able to use Goten during this fight since Cell isn't an electric type yet, which also means that if Yamper goes down here, I already lose this run. So we're just gonna hope that Cell's emotional support from the sidelines is gonna help us get through this one. Leading off with Wooloo, as usual, we're gonna kick off the battle with a Tail Whip to help increase my damage output. Then I start spamming Nuzzle, which on top of its 100% chance to paralyze, also does some decent damage thanks to Tail Whip. But of course, Hop annoyingly goes for a Growl, which basically makes Tail Whip useless. Hoping to KO with this next Nuzzle, we frustratingly just barely get it, leaving Wooloo with what looks like 2 HP, and then he goes for another Growl, bringing us to now -2 for the rest of the battle. Next up is Scorbunny, which is honestly my biggest concern in this fight due to its incredibly good speed and attack stats. So to cripple it, we start off with a Nuzzle for that Para-Hacks, but we do basically no damage thanks to our -2 in attack. Now I just decide to start letting off bites as they have a higher base damage than Nuzzle, even with stab, and gives us the chance to flinch. Unfortunately though, that -2 attack is really kicking us as these bites just aren't doing the damage I'd like. At this point, there isn't much I can do but just keep spamming bite and hoping for a flinch or a para, and somehow we don't end up getting either. But we are able to finally take down Scorbunny. However, with just 7 HP left, it's looking like this run might be a wipe already. Now we do have the type advantage on Rookity, but our health is just not looking good at all. So living on a prayer, I let off a Nuzzle, and I'm pretty happy to see Peck only does 1 point of damage.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
RNGesus finally blesses me with a Para-Hacks when I go for Tail Whip, meaning there's an even bigger chance I can survive this. Not trying to press my luck, I start letting off Nuzzles again and see a massive increase in damage. Taking another measly 1 damage from Peck, we finish off Rookity with a final Nuzzle to just barely make it out of this fight alive and keep this run going good so far. Now that was just way too close of a call, so we're gonna have to bolster our team with some new members. But first, I'm gonna make my way to Nuzlocke, where I get another little makeover here now that I have access to some nicer clothes and an actual hair salon. I don't have the DLC style card yet though, so vanilla hairdos will have to do for now. Okay, now we can hit up the Isle of Armor for our third encounter, Now I did do some grinding in the wild area, getting Goten to level 16 and grab the Crunch TR so that I can safely sweep Avery's team here. And since there isn't much to say about this battle other than I just spam Crunch, I'm going to use this time to go over something that I've kind of forgot to do in the intro. For my Sword and Shield runs, I will be limiting my encounters between badges. I'll have access to 3 encounters before Milo, and then every badge I get will allow me 2 more encounters. This way I don't end up with a full roster of 6 or more Pokemon before the first few gyms, making the challenge even harder. Now with that little forgotten rule explained, we're going to jump over to the Forest of Focus for our 3rd encounter. Emolga's flying typing will be perfect for Milo's grass types. I won't really be able to use it until the gym since it's already sitting at the level cap, but I'm going to box it for now and then pull it out right in time for Milo. However, the little bastard wants to give us a hard time staying in the ball, but after a few attempts, we get him to stay put and we name this little guy Chaozu. With our team at its current capacity limit, we head over to Turf Field to take on our first gym, and along the way we run into one of the Golden Girls? I'm not really sure what Dorothy's doing here, but apparently she wants to battle, so let's send her on back to the nursing home. We are slightly over leveled for this battle, so we end up steamrolling Beat's team with Crunch. I get slightly unlucky when Crunch drops Gothita's defense, proccing her competitive to raise her special attack, but in the long run it's fine because she won't live long enough to utilize her boost. She goes for another tickle on her second turn, completely wasting the competitive boost anyways, and then finally Hatena comes out, and due to Gothita's tickle bringing us down to -2 attack, it does take 3 crunches to take out Hatena, but she's barely able to damage Goten, so we easily take her down as well after a few turns. And with that battle done, we remind Grandma of the proper meds she's supposed to take, and then we safely take her back to the home, and it's on to take on Milo. Now since I'm so close to the level cap with my whole team, I carefully make my way through the gym challenge, avoiding as many gym trainers as possible. I low-key expect this battle to be super easy with Emolga, but just to be safe, I start off by going for a couple of charges to boost my special defense so that I can better tank the special attacks from Dynamax Eldegoss. On my second turn, I get lucky when Gossifleur procs my static ability, paralyzing it. Now feeling confident with my +2 Sped F boost, I decide it's time to start dealing damage and go for Swifts. Then RNGesus blesses me when Gossifleur loses a turn to paralysis, allowing us to save some health as we take it down with one last Swift. With the inevitable Dynamax, I protect on the first turn against Eldegoss, stalling for time and preserving our health. And thanks to Chaozu's special defense boost along with his flying typing, we take laughable damage from the max overgrowth. Now on the second turn Dynamax, I go for another charge, taking a little more damage than I'd like, but my berry pops, bringing me back up to about half health. Luckily, this is his last turn of Dynamax, so I go for one last protect, greatly reducing the amount of damage of this attack, and now that he's finally back to normal size, hopefully we can finish this with the HP we have left. Unfortunately, I did not account for how bulky Eldegoss is, and Swift is just doing basically no damage to it. So at this point, I decide to switch into Goten and hopefully get a defense drop with some crunches. I start with the Nuzzle of course for the paralysis, but I am not liking the damage Milo's dealing with that round. Regardless, I have to muscle through here and just start using Crunch to hopefully get a defense drop and or a paralysis proc. We take a disrespectful magical leaf, which makes me kinda question this battle, and now I'm second guessing every single decision I have ever made up to this point. At this point, I'm pretty much doomed, so I try to just stick it out and hope for the paralysis proc, and of course I don't get it, and lose Goten here. At this point, it's looking like I'm gonna wipe to Milo since I cannot use Cell yet. Alright, so, TLDR, that was a wipe obviously, so this is now my second attempt, embarrassing. However, because I was so close to the beginning of the game, I just reloaded an old save from right before I went into the gym against Milo. I figured I'm just going to keep the same Pokemon since I plan on using the exact same team comp for my second attempt, but this time, I'm actually going to use my brain and I'm going to go farm some XP candies from raids. That way, I can level up Cell right before the battle. This way, it's available for me to use, and because it's bug typing plus Charger Bug's crazy defense stat, it will be way more useful than Emolga. So yeah, I will see you guys back at the gym. Okay, we got the gym challenge out of the way as quick as possible, and this time I'm evolving Cell right before we fight Milo. That way we have the bug type advantage. So let's do it to it, folks. Alright, let's do it. We're still leading with Chaozu, but this time we have a slightly different moveset with Light Screen to help us survive more hits from Eldegoss. I still start by going for charges at the beginning just to get that Spit F up, but this time I'm going to go for 3 charges and then start applying damage with Swifts. Now, crazily enough, I actually didn't do any damage calcs for the battle, but miraculously, we get Gossifleur down to exactly 1 HP with 3 Swifts. And at this point, we're perfectly set up to pop a Light Screen and then clean up on the next turn with one final Taylor Swift. Now that Big Eldegoss is on the field, we again go for our first turn Protect to stall and minimize damage of course, and with our Light Screen, it does basically no damage. On the second turn, we go for another charge, but with the amount of damage I took, I'm assuming that this max overgrowth came off of a Leaf Ridge, since the AI is smart enough to see my disgusting +4 SpDef. Now finally, on the last turn of his Dynamax, we go for one more Protect, taking literally 1 point of damage.
Nice.
Now from here, we switch into Goten so that we can get off a Nuzzle for those possible para hacks, of course. What would an electric run be without para hacks? That is just stupid. But hold on, Goten's job isn't quite finished yet, because now we need to lower Eldegoss's defense with some Tail Whips. Unfortunately, I only get off one Tail Whip before getting crit and taking way too much damage, so now it's time for Cell to do his stuff and end this. With Eldegoss's lower defense, a single Bug Bite from Cell does massive damage, all while taking minuscule damage in return from Eldegoss's grass type attacks. We go for the final Bug Bite, taking down Milo and earning our first gym badge. Now this battle should not have been that hard, but for some reason I didn't evolve Cell in the first attempt because I underestimated Milo and his grass types, and I'm a little bit slow. It was a smooth brain moment for me. Anyways, with our first badge in hand, we're allowed another 2 encounters, so I head back over to the Isle of Armor for a Shinx, and we get super lucky too with it having the Intimidate ability, which is always great for Nuzlocks. We catch this little fella and completely ignoring his gender, name it Goku.
What's going on?
Our next encounter is going to be in Hulberry, which is perfect because we have to go there for the next gym anyways. After beating these Team Yell grunts on the bridge to the city, Goku evolves already because, you know, Saiyans just be leveling up like that, you know, they got like 20 million forms that they just learn every other day. And then we get the bike from this doctor, which I never understood why it's a doctor that gives us the bike, but whatever, a bike is a bike, I'll take free stuff. Now we only get a few moments on our brand new bike before this rude kumquat throws a stick in our tire and demands that we battle him for a taste of his team, which I would rather not taste. Now this is actually one of the easier rival battles in this run, so I'm going to jump ahead a bit to Hop's Raboot because it was the only member of his team that actually gave me any trouble here. Now Raboot obviously must have a scouter because he's immediately intimidated by Goku's power level.
It's over 9,000!
Now come on, did you guys think I was going to have a Dragon Ball Z electric type run and not make the reference to that meme once? It would be sacrilege of me not to. Anyways, we switch into Chiaotzu so we can do a couple more Intimidate cycles by bringing Goku back out. And after a second Intimidate, Goku taps his son in for some hands-on training. With that Raboot meat all tenderized and ready to cook, we take it out with 2 sparks. And you know what? I take back what I said earlier. Maybe I am down to taste Hop's team. He does have a very eatable team actually, now that I think about it. With his last Pokemon being Corvisquire, we do almost 70% of his health with a single spark and then switch into Cell to finish things off with a bite. After finally making it to Hull— What the fuck? Out of every bad decision Game Freak's ever made, having the evil team leader wear this is their worst. It's the worst thing they've ever done. Hands down, I won't take nobody else's opinion. This is the worst thing Game Freak has ever done in their history of game development. Now after years of intense psychotherapy to get that image out of my mind, we go to get our encounter in Hulberry, which is none other than a Chinchou. And the game must hate me because it keeps giving me Pokemon with the opposite genders from the characters I want to name them. Regardless, this Chinchou gets named King Kai because it's King Kai, alright? We then head on over to the lighthouse to find Nessa, thoughtfully looking out over the ocean. The doctor said the cream should help with this rat. Oh, someone's coming. Who gives her a trainer card and tells us how she's itching to battle us, which I think might be a condition. I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but she should probably get that checked out. Now with that little TMI moment out of the way, we awkwardly make our way to the gym for our battle with Nessa. And would you look at this place? Of course she's itchy. Being surrounded by this much moisture is bound to cause a fungal infection. Okay, all jokes aside, let's get down to business here, folks. Alright, yeah, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a little crush on Nessa.
Nice.
But that is not going to stop me from ruining her entire day. Now I forgot to mention this earlier, but after speaking with Nessa, I went behind the lighthouse to grab the Electro Web TM, and I honestly kind of confused Electro Web with Sticky Webs. I do that all the time because I was expecting Electro Web to stay up on the field to lower the speed of every Pokemon coming into battle, but that's not how Electro Web works, now is it? Now that was kind of the whole reason I led with Chiaotzu here, but whatever, everything works out fine because we take out Goldeen with little to no issue, and then we get super lucky here by taking out Aracuda with a single Electro Web. And just like that, literally in a matter of what, 30 seconds, we're already at her final Pokemon, which we will be bringing out Goku for an Intimidate to lower that attack stat. Because with Dreadnought's base attack stat of 115 and its decently strong move pool here, weakening it as much as possible is going to be our best bet of survival. Now, second turn of Dynamax, we go for a Protect as usual to try and stall out and minimize damage, of course, and Goku obviously has a Sensu Bean on hand, which brings us back all the way up to over half health, which I like to see. Now, I switch into Cell here because I know he can tank a hit, and I need Goku for one more Intimidate later. Now, I go for Protect here mainly just trying to scout what she's going to do next, and then I go back into Goku for another Intimidate to get this thing as weak as possible, because Dreadnought is still a threat here. With another Intimidate down, we go into Goten for our bread and butter attack, Nuzzle, pulling out that father-son combo with that Intimidate Nuzzle strat. Now here we go back into Cell, getting super lucky when Dreadnought gets paralyzed twice in a row, allowing us to get off some free Electro Webs, and RNGesus really loved me on this day because we got a third Parahack and take him down with one last Electro Web for that big dub. Now, to be honest, I was actually expecting this battle to be a little bit harder than it actually was because of Dreadnought, but we braved these waters and was able to wash away Nessa just like that. I do hope she gets that itching looked at though, because that sounds like it could be a problem, so she should definitely make an appointment with her doctor. Yep. Now, while I'm in Hullberry, I grabbed the magnet item, which I probably should have grabbed before doing battle with Nessa. Honestly, I don't know what I was thinking when I did this run, but I make a lot of mistakes. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Now, since we earned another badge, I head back over to the Isle of Armor for my next encounter, a lady Pincurchin that I named Broly. I then find a Dynamax raid with an Eevee in it for our second encounter of this badge, and just like that, we add another member of the Z Fighters to the squad with Gohan. After our two encounters, we head back to Hullberry to find Kabu in the mine, but we run into frickin' Dorothy Zabornak again. They really need to tighten security at the old folks home. How does she keep getting out? We simply Oko through Grandma's whole team, which really frustrates her because she swears she's a great Pokemon trainer, and I'm sure she is. We'll just get you back to the home, Grandma. Now, Goten ends up evolving from this fight to finally become a Super Saiyan. Man, they grow up so fast, don't they? We eventually do find Kabu at the back of the mine and tell him to stop slacking and get back to work because we have a Nuzlocke to complete. Now, for the sake of brevity, we're going to cut over to the battle with Kabu since nothing really noteworthy happens between here and there. Now, for the Kabu battle, I was not too worried as I evolved King Kai off screen, so now I have a lantern to use for this fight. I also taught her Stockpile and Protect to increase my bulkiness. Right away, I start by going for Stockpiles, and 3 Stockpiles later, I'm all ready to start doing some damage. Going for Bubble Beam, I do about half damage, which I wish did more, but Lantern doesn't have that great of a special attack stat. Actually, it doesn't have that good of any stat except for his health stat, which kind of sucks. But anyways, a second Bubble Beam takes out Ninetales, meaning Arcanine is up next. Its Intimidate is meaningless to a special attacker, so we go for another Bubble Beam, and I get lucky when he misses his Will-O-Wisp. But he goes for another Will-O-Wisp, and of course he lands this one. However, one last Bubble Beam takes down Arcanine, leaving only Scorch left. For his first turn of Dynamax, we used the obvious strategy of protecting to reduce the damage, and we tanked that hit pretty well. It does go for a max Flutterby, dropping my special attack, which as I just explained is already garbage to begin with, so now Bubble Beam does basically next to nothing, even though it's super effective. And after another max Flutterby, I will have to switch out King Kai. I decided to tough it out for one more turn with Protect here just to end his Dynamax. And now that he's back to normal size, we go into Goku for the Intimidate to lower his attack stat because Scorch is actually a pretty formidable Pokemon. Next, I go for a Leer to drop his defense, but then I totally forget that he has Coil, which increases attack, defense, and accuracy, which is really just not good for me. Now, I am in a bind here, and I'm trying to figure out how I make it out of this fight without any deaths. I think Pincurchin can tank a hit, so we switch into Broly, but instead of attacking, Kabu goes for another Coil, and things are really not looking good at this point. I go for a Liquidation and he goes for another Coil. This guy is really trying to reach that 100% perfection, eh? He's trying to get to his final form real quick. I do get lucky with a defense drop from Liquidation, but I'm still in a tough spot from those Coils. On the next turn, we take a Flame Wheel to the face, and it does way too much damage. Barely surviving that hit, I'm forced to switch out Broly, so we go back into Goku for another Intimidate to keep his attack stat as low as possible. And then things get even worse on the switch when he goes for a Bug Bite, eating Goku's Ganlon Berry, raising his defense. I just can't catch a break here, can I? So now at this point, I have to decide who I'm gonna sack here. I end up deciding Gohan is probably the least useful Pokemon for the rest of the run, so I switch into him and actually miraculously survive here? I double check his stats real quick, and he's most definitely overfed. So I take this chance to go for baby doll eyes, trying to get as many attack drops as possible. But as expected, Gohan goes down to another flame wheel. I go into Goku one last time for another attack drop, taking him at least to -1 attack. Hopefully that will be enough to survive this next hit. I switch into Goten, and that -1 attack is definitely doing its job, as we can tank this flame wheel pretty well. We go for the Nuzlocke to get the paralyze, and we get super lucky when paralysis procs right away. At this point, I'm pretty sure the dub is in the bag for us on the next turn, but he just barely survives on what looks like 2 HP. This is ridiculous. It's fine though, because we're able to take him out on the next turn with minimal losses. I'm not gonna lie, I expected Kabu to be pretty easy, but that Senza Squelch with Coil really caught me off guard, and I will not forget that for future playthroughs. Anyways, with that victory, we now have our next badge. At this point, we hit up the Digging Duo for a Thunderstone to evolve Cell. We catch a Helioptile we name Piccolo, then get lucky when this Manectric decided it wanted all the smoke. I was actually gonna go for an Electrike anyways, but this works even better. We catch the Manectric and give it a name to match its hairstyle. Now using our Thunderstone, we evolve Cell. And using a Sunstone I picked up from somewhere, I have no idea where to be honest, we evolve Piccolo too. And then on Route 6, I use some XP candies to help Goku reach Super Saiyan 3. And with everybody evolved and battle ready, we take on Hop before heading into the next gym. He leads with a Cramorant, which is perfect for us since it's 4 times weak to our electric attacks. We begin by setting up Sticky Webs for speed control, and Cramorant hits us with a super effective pluck. But Vikavolt is just so bulky, it's barely anything to even worry about. I decide to stay in and go for the Thunderbolt since even a crit pluck from Cramorant isn't going to KO Cell. Hop then sends out Raboot next, which takes a nice speed drop from our webs, and then I switch into Goku here for the Intimidate and to avoid a super effective Flame Wheel. Surprisingly, he goes for Round instead, which does pitiful damage. On Goku's first turn, we go for the Spark and immediately get a paralysis.
Nice.
Now I expect to KO with this Spark, but of course he lives on just a sliver, and then uses a super potion on his next turn. I end up just switching into King Kai and finally take out Raboot with a super effective Bubble Beam. And next up is Silicobra, who just survives an Ice Beam, which just goes to show either how garbage Lantern's special attack is or how bad my luck is. Either or, take your pick. Anyways, we take him down with a second Ice Beam, which only leaves Hop's Toxo next, who we send out Piccolo to deal with. A single bulldoze is more than enough to take out the electric baby salamander monster thing. And with Hop out of the way, we make our way into the gym, which has honestly the most unrelated gym challenge I've ever seen in probably any Pokemon game. Like, what does spinning teacups have anything to do with ghost types? I've never understood this gym, it doesn't make sense. Anyways, our battle with Alistair kicks off with Cell facing off against Yamask. We set up our webs as Yamask goes for a measly Hex doing just 15 damage. On our second turn, we go for the Bug Bite, which does basically nothing and then take a critical hit from another Hex. I'm not liking how this is going, so I switch into King Kai, who kicks off with a Bubble Beam, doing massive damage. I guess she heard me dissing her special attack, so she wanted to show me that I was wrong. And next up is Mimikyu, which will be annoying due to its disguise ability. We switch into Goku to lower Mimikyu's attack, taking a slash on the switch in, but it does minimal damage thanks to our Intimidate. We then go for a Rain Dance, hoping to position Piccolo to take advantage of its ability Dry Skin. And then next we go for a Volt Switch to break Mimikyu's disguise while getting another switch off. Goku taps in Vegeta and we get lucky when Static procs, leaving Mimikyu paralyzed. Vegeta goes for Shockwave, taking a useless Baby Doll Eyes from Mimikyu. Now, not liking that damage from Shockwave, I bring out King Kai for a rain boosted Bubble Beam, and it still doesn't do the damage I wanted. Why is Mimikyu this bulky? I just decide to stay in and take it out with another Bubble Beam, taking no damage thanks to the Para Hacks. Now next up is Cursula, and this thing is the bane of my existence. It took almost as long as his Gigantamax Gengar to beat. I do a lot of switching and take some decent damage due to Curse, but eventually we take it out using a slew of Pokemon, and thanks to the magic of editing, what was 3+ minutes for me to do is only several seconds for you guys to watch. Now, with the actual incarnation of Satan himself finally defeated, all that is left is Alistair's ace, Gengar. This is mainly who I was setting up webs for, as Gengar outspeeds basically my entire team. Now I start by switching into Piccolo in the hopes that he goes for a ghost type attack on his first turn of Gigantamax, and I get super unlucky when he goes for a Max Darkness instead, because Iron Jesus hates me. I decide to stay in and go for a Bulldoze, hoping to give some of my other Pokemon the speed advantage which might have been a little too risky as I take massive damage from another max darkness. However, knowing that I for sure outspeed now, I volt switch into King Kai since it's the healthiest and beefiest Pokemon I have right now. And we surprisingly tanked this max darkness pretty well. Now with his Dynamax over and at -2 speed, I'm confident we outspeed here. So I go for a discharge and I just missed the KO as well as proc his curse body, which disables discharge. I would be more annoyed if he wasn't definitely in range here, so I just go for a bubble beam to get the KO. Whew. That battle was also much harder than I expected, to be honest. However, with that victory, we earn our 4th badge and then run into Dorothy again. They have got to start locking the doors at that old folks home. With Cell at 100% perfection, this battle should be easy, but I set up a sticky web here just in case, and I don't even realize it yet, but this comes back to bite me in a few seconds. On the second turn, we go for a Bug Bite, but thanks to Reflect, we don't get the KO, and I really need to get Bug Buzz for Cell. Now after taking an unruly amount of damage from Psyshock, I decided to bench Cell and call in the big dog, or I guess Cat, who also takes some disgusting amount of damage from a Psyshock. Luckily, Goku's rocking Crunch, so we get the KO one time. Dorothy's next Pokemon is Hatchrim, we Volt Switch on to bring out our Beefcake King Kai, who eats Side Beam pretty well and then retaliates with a discharge of our own, almost taking out the Hatchrim. Now I expect this next discharge here to end Hatchrim's career, but I'm totally bamboozled when Bede goes and uses a Super Potions on us. We do get a paralysis though, so that's good at least. But I think King Kai's had enough though, so I call in Piccolo instead and actually end Hatchrim with the Parabolic Charge. And now this is where Sticky Webs and Stupidity come in to show me why I shouldn't underestimate the elderly. Bede's next Pokemon is Gothorita, whose ability is competitive, which sharply raises its special attack whenever a stat is lowered. And thanks to her Sticky Web, that now means it's sitting at a +2 special attack. And because I must have had a stroke during this battle, I go for Eerie Impulse, which first reduces Gothorita's special attack by 2, and then just raises it back up thanks to competitive. Now in an attempt to rectify my mistakes, I Volt Switch into Vegeta, planning to set up Light Screen to offset Gothorita's boosted special attack, and I get lucky when instead of attacking, she goes for another Fake Tears. Getting off my Light Screen, I feel a million times better, and it was definitely needed looking at that damage off of the Side Beam. With Light Screen up, I go back into Piccolo, as it has very good special bulk, and it shows as we take minimal damage from Side Beam this time. We finally finish off Gothorita with a Parabolic Charge, bringing our health right back up to full, and Bede's final Pokemon is Ponyta, who goes down to 2 consecutive Parabolic Charges, and with that, we survived our cluster of a battle. Finally, the nursery homeworkers arrive to haul our geriatric friend here back off to safer environments, and I don't know why, but I feel like this time it just might stick. Anyways, for our next 2 encounters, we catch a Toxel named Frieza and a Magnemite named Android 19. And with some XP candies, we evolve Frieza into his final form, as well as give Android 19 a little tune-up. That isn't all though, as another trip over to the Digging Duo gave me another Thunderstone to upgrade Android 19 to peak performance, and now, with our Fairy Slayers on hand, we're jumping right into our next battle with Opal. Our battle with Opal. So the Dark Lord leads off with her glaring wheezing, and we meet her with Cell, which means you know what time it is, it's time to get sticky. Now we take some decent damage off of this sludge, but we do get our webs up, so Cell has done his job, but then she hits us with a question. And you'd think I know these by now, but I get it wrong. Anyways, Cell isn't with all the 21 questions, so he taps in Android 19, who's fully immune to sludge. And then we go for a Gyro Ball, which does not do nearly as much damage as I'd hoped for. Now here we get our second question, and again, I get it wrong. I swear I've played this game several times, folks. Still not satisfied with this damage coming off a Gyro Ball, I bring in Piccolo and then I go for a Bulldoze, forgetting that Weezing has Levitate. I don't know where I left my brain, folks, but it's clearly not in my head. I make up for nearly throwing by going for an Eerie Impulse to drop Weezing's special attack. Then next turn, I go for a Volt Switch, doing some decent damage, finally, and bringing up Goku. At this point, we get another question, and I get this one right, which is well worth it, because both my attack stats gets a sharp boost from it. Now Goku goes for a final Volt Switch so that I can position myself nicely while also taking out Weezing. We bring in Vegeta next as Opal brings in Mawile. We set up a Light Screen and then take a hard crunch, getting unlucky with the defense drop. But it's okay because we're going to go back into Goku for the Intimidate and then set up some more. Mawile takes the Intimidate but also sets up an Iron Defense, but most of my team is special anyway, so that's not really going to help her. Now first we set up the Electric Terrain and eat a hearty Crunch Bar. On the next turn, a Terrain boosted Volt Switch is more than enough to OHKO Mawile, and then we send in Piccolo against our Togekiss, and with Electric Terrain and Parabolic Charge, we're able to deal large amounts of damage and heal ourselves in the process. Now Darth Lord Sidious tries to cop Piccolo's style with a draining kiss of her own, but she just doesn't got it like us. One last parabolic charge takes out Togekiss and leaves us sitting pretty with full health. For her Ace Gigantamax Alchemy, we start by going for an Eerie Impulse to cripple its main attacking stat, which clearly pays off with G-Max Finale doing basically nothing to us. Now we're probably safe to start using Parabolic Charges, but I really want to embarrass her here, so I'll go for another Eerie Impulse to really make her moves worthless. Now one last Eerie Impulse, just because at this point I'm bullying her and really want to make Alchemy completely useless. And now finally, after her G-Max wears off, I use Volt Switch here to bring in Frieza, which surprisingly didn't get used much in this battle. However, he does make up for it by hitting through Confusion to land a Venoshock that just barely KOs. I'm so over those. One more Venoshock takes out Alchemy, and just like that, we have our 5th gym badge. Now I really must have made a good impression on Opal because she decides to be our sugar mama, fly us out to Hammerlock, and buy us some new drip. And with our sugar baby status solidified, I get Mommy Opal to pay for our trip over to the Isle of Armor for our next encounter, this Dedenne that I name Yamcha, because I really don't have high hopes for its survivability. Our second encounter for this gym badge will need to wait until after this battle with Hop, as he's blocking our way to the only route where we can catch it on. Leading with Trevenant, I send out Cell for the type advantage, and right away we go for the Sticky Web and get hit with a Confuse Ray and luckily hit through to get our webs up. Now next turn we go for the Bug Bite and avoid the crit from Shadow Claw, hitting through Confusion again to land Bug Bite, but not liking my damage output, I decide to try Thunderbolt next, knowing Grass resists Electric, but hoping that the stab will make up for it. It clearly does not at all, so I riskily go for a Rain Dance on the next turn and then switch into Bolt Hunt for a crunch. Oh, and I take massive damage from a Shadow Claw on the switch, but it's okay because I outspeed Trevenant and Crunch easily picks up the KO here, so it's on to this next Pokemon, Cinderace. And now this is the main reason I set up Webs and the Rain, so right away we switch into Goku for the Intimidate attack drop and get super lucky when he misses his Pyro Ball. Next we set up the Electro Terrain, taking a Pyro Ball to the face, but with -1 attack in the rain, it does minuscule damage. We do get burned though, which is going to greatly hamper Goku's longevity in this match. Now in order to preserve Goku, we Volt Switch out after Hop uses Agility, as if Cinderace wasn't fast enough. We go for the obvious switch in of King Kai, and then go for the stab, super effective rain boosted Bubble Beam for the easy KO. Now I gotta say, at this point, things are playing out generally in our favor. That is, until his freaking Snorlax comes out. At this point I realize I don't have any good physical attackers to use against this thing, and it's setting up Stockpile. Great. So I just start hammering it with whatever I can, and it took literally forever to get this thing down. Now instead of narrate this whole shitstorm section of the video, I'd like to take this time to remind y'all that if you're still watching, consider dropping a like, and hey, maybe subscribing if you're enjoying the video. This one took excruciating long to get out because I did not manage my workload efficiently? I did not manage my workload efficiently at all, so it'd mean a lot if you did. I have some more Nuzlocks and Pokemon challenges planned and have learned a lot better workload management from this, so hopefully I can get them all faster. Anyways, let's slow down the footage here for a moment because I take a loss when I'm forced to sack Goten to get off a charm. Now I'm not gonna lie to y'all, that one really hit me in the field. Boltund is generally a good Pokemon and one that would have been incredibly useful for the rest of the run, and as you can see, Snorlax is so beefed up that my Volt Switch barely does anything to it at all. So I decided to switch in Cell and unbelievably miss the KO by a sliver. Luckily Paralysis procs, so we're able to get the KO on the next turn, but Jesus, that was ridiculous. Next up is Heatmore, who infuriatingly survives a crit Bubble Beam on 1 HP and then almost kills King Kai with a slash. My heart cannot take this battle anymore. We get rid of Heatrib, wow. We get rid of Heatmore, bringing him to his last Pokemon, Boltund. I bring in Frieza, expecting him to use an electric attack on King Kai, and I'm flabbergasted when he hits us with a crunch instead. Clearly, we're not out of the woods yet. I switch into Vegeta, hoping for a modicum of luck, but am met with only death and disappointment when the Prince of Saiyan goes down to a crunch. It's okay though, because Goku is here to avenge his best frenemy. Going for a crunch of our own, we get the defense drop, and seeing that his crunch did 23 points of damage, I decide to live on a prayer, stay in, and go for another crunch. And would you guys believe it, we just missed the KO again. What is this RNG? And now, we lose Goku to a reciprocal crunch. This is by far the worst loss we could have taken. Luxray is an incredibly useful Pokemon because of Intimidate. Anyways, we'll have to mourn later because Cell has some work to do here. As you can see, he's learned Bug Buzz since leveling up from this battle, so we pop a Bug Buzz on Boltund to get the KO. Now this was clearly the most devastating battle yet, guys. We lost a lot of Pokemon I was hoping to have for future battles and from this point on, I'm really gonna need to play strategically to survive the rest of this run. After that battle with the Nightmare King, we get our next encounter at Togedemaru on Route 7 we name Videl, and then straight to Kirchester Gym. And I just want to say that I absolutely hate ice gym challenges. I swear every ice gym in the series has had only one of two challenges. It's either a slippery floor maze or a crumbly floor maze, and both absolutely suck. I begrudgingly make my way through this challenge, avoiding all of the gym trainers because my team is too close to the level cap to eventually make my way to what I think is my personal favorite Man I Love Frogs of the series, Melanie. Mama Melanie leads with Frostmoth, and we send out Piccolo and start hitting her with eerie impulses. 2 eerie impulses later, then we set up a light screen and go to switch into Cell. And here's where I realized I forgot to move Light Clay from Cell to Piccolo. We go into Cell anyways, set up our sticky webs primarily for their Manitan, and because I was hoping to get 8 turns of light screen, I decide I need to stall a bit so I can reset the light screen with Cell's Light Clay. So here I go for the Thunderbolt, doing a nice 50% of damage, and then I waste the next turn by going for another sticky webs as I see there's only 1 turn left on my light screen. Now I set up light screen again, this time getting 8 turns out of it thanks to our Light Clay. Now we send out the legendary Super Saiyan Broly, who laughs in the face of a pitiful bug buzz, then sets up our first layer of toxic spikes. Then of course we set up a second layer for that badly poisoned status effect, and then we switch into our newest member, Videl, who easily takes out Frostmoth with the Iron Head, and then is able to just outspeed Darmanitan thanks to the webs and uses the opportunity to U-turn out. We then send in King Kai next, who gets a free switch in thanks to Darmanitan going for a taunt. Then we start by going for discharge. We do some decent damage and then tank a headbutt fairly well. And then at this point, poison damage knocks Darmanitan into Zen mode, which unfortunately makes him outspeed King Kai now. One more discharge just misses the KO, which is really turning into a running joke at this point, but luckily the poison gives us the helping hand to finish the job. Next up is Ice-Ku, and we immediately switch into Piccolo to attempt healing up with a parabolic charge, but catch the freeze hacks. My luck is really not lucking for me this second half of the run, is it? We end up playing Switcheroo here for a couple of minutes, till I eventually am able to take out Ice-Ku from poison damage and have Videl set up on the field, ready for Lapras. For its first turn of Gigantamax, we go for the super effective Zing Zap, but it doesn't do nearly as much damage as I'd hoped. Melanie is of course going to go for a G-Max Resonance, which hurts way more than I expected. We do have a berry though, and seeing as how that first hit was a crit, which is why it did so much damage, I decided to stay in and go for another Zing Zap. We take this G-Max Resonance way better than that first one, and now decide to send in the legendary Super Saiyan once again, who goes down to a critical hit from Max Geyser. Yep, RIP. I send in King Kai since Lapras shouldn't be able to hurt it too much now that it's not in Gigantamax form, and then set up an Aqua Ring for survivability. And Melanie must be a hacker because she gets another crit on her Icy Wind. This has got to stop. Luckily, there's no way she can survive this next turn, and we take her down with a final discharge. My goodness, these battles are beating me right now. And with that, we just scrape by to earn our 6th gym badge. From here, we hit up the walled area for the overworld Galvantula that walks around just outside Motostoke City, and then several Ultra Balls later, we have ourselves Trunks the Galvantula. Now I head over to do some Isle of Armor content to unlock the move tutor and change my bike, because the base game bike is just utterly atrocious. Then I spend a few minutes at the digging duo so that we can get the final fossil piece for our next encounter, Dracozold. We name this beast Shenron and make our way to Spikemuth to take on Pierce. But first, he puts on a show for us, and I gotta say, this guy's got some great vocals. We didn't come here for music though, so it's time to throw down, and this fight should be one of the easiest gym battles since there's no Dynamax in this gym. Since Pierce's first Pokemon is Scrafty, we lead with Chaozu, but it isn't for the obvious type advantage. Instead, we're going to utilize Encore to lock Scrafty into Fake Out. First, we protect to avoid the Fake Out, and then next turn we outspeed and go for Encore to lock him into Fake Out for 3 turns. And now that he's stuck doing that for 3 turns, we start dealing damage with Dual Wing Beat. But thanks to Intimidate, it's not doing very much, so on the next turn I decide to Volt Switch out to reset Chaozu's stats. Piccolo tags in to pick up the slack, and he comes out swinging as he lands a Focus Blast with a big KO. Now that, folks, was the incredibly rare footage of a successful Focus Blast. Now next up is Pierce's Obstagoon, and I go straight Pokeballs to the wall with another Focus Blast, but of course, it's blocked by an Obstruct. So next turn, I slam the YOLO button, and this time go for another Focus Blast, landing it and scoring the 4 times effective critical hit Oko. Piccolo came to eat. Now down to just 2 Pokemon left, Pierce sends out Malamar next, and I decide not to push my luck with another Focus Blast, so I Volt Switch out to bring in Cell for those 4 times effective Bug Buzzes. We laugh off a payback for Malamar, and eat a foul play next turn, but inevitably end up taking Malamar out to Oko Town, with a single Bug Buzz. Now last up is Skuntank, who I bring out Shenron for and get lucky with the free Sucker Punch switch in. Right away I go for the hostile boosted high horsepower and landed, but somehow he survives on one. This trend is getting real old. Next turn we go for the always hitting aerial ace to pick up the win, and with that we have our 7th gym badge. Now before Raihan, I decided to try the Cramomatic to get an ability capsule so I can change King Kai's ability to Volt Absorb, but somehow I mess up the formula and get an item I don't need instead. Love that for me. Pretending that never happened, I make my way through Raihan's gym to the big man himself. Raihan's gym being a double battle meant I really had to carefully prepare for this fight, so I lead off with King Kai and Piccolo, and right away we set up the rain to remove Gigalith's special defense boost from the sand, then I scald into the Gigalith slot for that super effective rain boosted OHKO. The rain goes up, the scald comes out, and Gigalith that survives? I'm sorry guys, this game is really testing me today, huh? Anyways, getting back into it, I go for the Volt Switch into Gigalith and Ice Beam into Flygon. Picking up the KO with the Volt Switch, I bring out Android 19 to set up for Duraludon and take out the Flygon with a single Ice Beam, surprisingly. With his last two Pokemon staring us down, I hit Duraludon with a Metal Sound to lower his special defense and then go for the OHKO Scald on Sandaconda. And after his great spiel about being great and Gigantamaxing or whatever else, Android 19 eats a Max Knuckle pretty well actually, then returns a Metal Sound, harshly dropping Duraludon's special defense. Next we instantly deal with the Sandaconda using a single Scald. This of course sets up the sand again, but now it's a 2v1 match in our favor. Predicting another Max Knuckle, I switch out Android 19 for Trunks and go for a neutral Ice Beam into Duraludon. Trunks takes damage from Stealth Rocks, and even with a Spit F drop, Duraludon eats an Ice Beam pretty well. And now predicting the Max Rockfall this time, I switch it back into Android 19 and go for another Ice Beam from King Kai. The Rockfall comes out as called, and Ice Beam brings Duraludon finally into the red. And now one last prediction for the Body Press into Magnezone, so I switch into Chaozu and go for one last Ice Beam. Chaozu takes Rocks damage, eats a Body Press, and then King Kai secures the win with one last Ice Beam. And just like that, we finally have all 8 badges and can begin the Championship Cup. But first, we can also finally get our last encounter before the Championship Cup, our Rotom. We name it Boo since it loves changing form at will, and then battle this guy for the Rotom catalog. With our Sears catalog in hand, we finally begin the Championship Cup, and for the sake of brevity, and because this video is much longer than I expected, we're going to skip some battles here. We're going to skip the Marnie battle and jump over to the Hop fight because I want vengeance for my fallen members. Leading with Piccolo into his double, we start off the fight with a Focus Blast, and you know my boy Piccolo got it on lock because we landed for the OHKO. Next is his Snorlax, which I foolishly set up the rain here in front of, forgetting that he had Hammer Arm. So Piccolo gets utterly rocked setting up the rain, and I'm forced to switch out using Volt Switch on the next turn for a little chip damage. We send in Trunks to Galvantula to tank a resisted Hammer Arm, and then use the opportunity to set up Sticky Webs for a Cinderace, and then get lucky by avoiding this high horsepower. Now the next few turns consist of me using Electro Ball, Hop using a full restore, and then me knocking him back into the yellow with a crit Electro Ball. Then I decided to take a free switch into Amoga since he's spamming high horsepower. At this point, I hope he's in range for the Volt Switch KO, but we just miss it. I decided to go into King Kai for no particular reason, and then get lucky when he hits us with a quad resisted Heavy Slam.
Nice.
Now I set up an Aqua Ring for some survivability, and am surprised by a high horsepower that knocks me down almost 50%. Snorlax clearly causing problems for me once again. I managed to take it out next turn though, finally with a Scald. Now next up is Pincurchin, which is nowhere near as bulky as Snorlax, so it goes down pretty easily to 2 back-to-back Scalds. Or so I thought! You guys already know how bad my luck has been for just missing those crucial KOs in this run, so of course, Pincurchin infuriatingly survives on 1 HP. I decided to take the free switch in here with Android 19 so that I can set up the Reflect in anticipation for a Dynamax Cinderace. Next, I bring in Piccolo again to set up the rain as I'm really trying to just slow down his Cinderace. This is going to be our first time facing a Dynamax, so I'm going to need all the debuffs I can get onto this thing. And with the rain and screen set up, I send out Shenron to finish things with a high horsepower, and then with his second last Pokemon being Corviknight, I bring out King Kai to position myself nicely for Cinderace, set up an Aqua Ring for obvious reasons, and then take out Corviknight with 1, 2 Thunderbolts. And now it's time for that big Dynamax Cinderace. After that glorious battle cry, Cinderace goes for a max ooze, raising its special attack, and we manage to get off a big Scald for around 40% damage. We go for another Scald on his second turn of Dynamax and tank another max ooze pretty nicely actually. We land the Scald through confusion, bringing him down to the red while sitting nicely on HP thanks to lefties and Aqua Ring. And his last turn on this earth is wasted on a max knuckle as we KO with one last Scald. Skipping the Oleander battle, our next opponent will be Bede, which is the first time I think I've actually acknowledged him by his real name in this run. Anyways, we're gonna hyper speed through this battle to his Dynamaxmon. We lead off with Trunks to set up the webs and then go into Android 19, and the strategy is pretty much just flash cannon everything until we get to Rapidash. At this point, I set up the ring with Piccolo and then switch back into Android 19 to KO Rapidash with another flash cannon. Now for Hatterene, we set up the ring specifically to survive a single max flare so that we can hit her with a metal sound to drop her Spedef. Thanks to Web, we definitely outspeed to land the metal sound and then survive the max flare thanks to the rain. On the next turn, we go for the flash cannon and get the Oko thanks to that special defense drop from metal sound. And with that, our friend Dorothy decides she's finally just not cut out for his life, and she goes back to the retirement home to live out her twilight years in peace. Now we're going to skip the Nesta battle here because our electric types versus her water types is a wash, pun intended. But in case anyone wanted a summary of the battle, here's a short reenactment. After giving Nessa her beatdown, we're going to jump to the final battle with Raihan because I really don't care to narrate the Alistair battle. Now the championship battle with Raihan is probably easier than his gym battle since his team works way better in dual battles. We lead off with Piccolo to counter his Torkoal by setting up the rain right away, and he goes for Yawn, so we decide to go for a Volt Switch to avoid the sleep while getting off massive damage. We then send in King Kai for the obvious advantage and then take out the already wounded Torkoal with a Scald. We do fall asleep from a yawn that I took while setting up Aqua Ring, but it's okay because I switch in Emolga on the Flygon while it uses Sandstorm, and then on the next turn I lock it into Sandstorm with Encore. Now we're not going to talk about this smooth brain moment I have here, where I try to set up the rain while Flygon is locked into Sandstorm, and instead we're going to focus on this big brain play of me switching Emolga back in to an Earthquake, then locking Flygon into that instead. And then 3 turns later, and my electric flying squirrel dual wing beat Flygon into submission until he used the full restore, of course. Another 3 turns later, and we actually beat Flygon into submission this time. His next Pokemon is Turtonator, who we encore into using Shell Trap so we can get some free switch-ins. We send in Piccolo to set up the rain, then Volt Switch out to bring in King Kai, who I hope will wake up soon. Apparently though, Turtonator has Sunny Day, which I don't like at all, and now we get super unlucky with sleep and take not 1, but 2 Dragon Pulses waiting for King Kai to eventually wake up and set up an Aqua Ring. We do get lucky when Raihan misses a Fire Blast though, giving us a free turn of heals that we desperately need. On our next turn we go for a Scald while Turtonator sets up the Sun again, giving us 1 more free turn of healing. On the next turn after that, we're able to take down Turtonator with an Ice Beam, meaning we get even more free healing. His next Pokemon is Goodra, who tanks an Ice Beam worryingly well, but then goes ahead to set up the rain for us. How nice. Now on the next turn I go for a Scald to see how much damage it does, and even in the rain, it's basically useless. We eat a Thunder relatively well, and then decide to just stick with Ice Beams for Goodra. 1 more Ice Beam later, and it's lights out for the Slimy Slug Dragon. And now for Duraludon, we take a Max Rock Spell to the face, and return the favor with an Ice Beam, landing the big freeze hacks. Taking this opportunity, I switch in Android 19, and get super unlucky when he thaws out instantly and hits me with a Max Depletion. Luckily we resist it because it actually ends up critting us as well. We go to set up a Reflect next, but he outspeeds to land the Max Knuckle, doing a fair amount of damage. Get our Reflect up and he shrinks down to a more manageable size, and at this point I predict the Body Press, so I switch into Chiaotzu. Then, predicting the Stone Edge, I Volt Switch out to bring in Piccolo, who also Volt Switches out in prediction of another Body Press, and then finally Trunks taps in and is able to secure the victory with an Electro Ball. Easy peasy. Now, it's at this point that I realize I can get one last encounter before the Rhodes and Leon battles. But first, I need to grab a Galarian Stunfisk. You see, on the Isle of Armor, there's an NPC that will trade you old forms of Pokemon for their Galarian counterparts. So I'm going to catch this Chompy boy and trade him for a Unova Stunfisk, which will be incredibly useful for the Leon fight. With Galarian Stunfisk in hand, we ride around the Isle looking for this lady, and my god, this took way too long. I eventually do find her, but it was while I was playing in handheld mode, so I had to use the in-console video capture for footage of this trade. We name him Krillin since I can't believe I forgot about Goku's day 1 ride or die. And now it's off to take on Chairman Rose, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I thought this battle would be a lot easier because I brought along Rotom Heat, but it ends up being much more challenging than I expected. The Chairman leads with his Escavalier, who of course is met by a Rotom Heat. We start by instantly going for a Nasty Plot and get the free setup when he misses his Mega Horn. On the next turn, we of course OHKO with a single Overheat, and then do another Nasty Plot Overheat setup to OHKO his next Pokemon, Ferrothorn. Now at this point, everything seems to be going smoothly until for some reason I switch out on Berserker to bring in Shenron, and of course, we just missed the KO with high horsepower. I'm so over this run. At this point, I bring in Android 19 and clean up with a Flash Cannon. Next is Kling Klang, who takes way too long to take down, but just know it involved a lot of switching, Rose landing a crit assurance on Rotom, and then me having to take down Kling Klang with chip damage from Trunks' Electro Ball. And now for Gigantamax Copperajah, I stall out his first turn of G-Max with Protect, and then decide to sack Trunks so that I can get off a Screech. I figured I don't need Galvantula for the Leon fight, so this is probably my best option in the long run for this fight. Trunks lets out a final Death Screech, then goes down to a Max Quake, and with that we say goodbye to our time-traveling friend. For Rose's last turn of G-Max, we send out Android 19 to bait out the Max Quake, and then instantly send in Boo to waste his last turn of G-Max with our ground immunity. Now with Copperajah back to normal, I switch in King Kai and get super unlucky when he crits with a Zen Headbutt. At this point, I just have to send in Shenron and hope he goes for the high horsepower and misses, and oh my god, I get lucky when he does, and we're able to land our high horsepower, and OHKO, thanks to Trunks' sacrifice, your life was not in vain, friend. Now with Rose out of the way, it's time for the Eternamax battle, and using Toxtricity, this battle went basically flawlessly. For the majority of the battle, I just hit Eternatus with Eerie Impulses while my 3 teammates over here basically carried me through the entire thing. That is, until this moment right here when Eternatus slaps me with a Max Whirlwind, bringing Frieza all the way down to his Focus Sash. Whew, that was close. If he had caused any chip damage at all throughout the fight before this, that Max Whirlwind would have killed me just now. Now as you can see, I'm counting my blessings here and decided to switch in Boo, hoping my teammates can end this on the switch in. They let me down, and Boo takes a Max Whirlwind, living on 15 HP, and then securing the KO with a final Shadow Ball. And now with the world ending and pending doom out of the way, we can end this run with our final battle against Leon, and it's time to go all out, folks. I lead with Boo and go for an Overheat, hoping he doesn't first turn King Shield. To no one's surprise, he does. For our next turn, I predict the Shadow Ball, so I switch into Piccolo for the immunity, and he falls right into my hands. Now predicting a Sacred Sword, we Volt Switch into Cell for the resistance, and again, I play this man like a flute. Now expecting a King Shield, I go for the free switch in, and my god, this is ridiculous. I should have just written the script for this myself. I kinda did, didn't I? Anyways, from here, Piccolo secures the easy good mother. Anyways, expecting the full restore, I set up webs with Cell and then rinse and repeat my switching strategy to actually secure the KO this time. Like, what is my luck on this run right now? Really? Now we send in the MVP Krillin the Stun Fist to take on Leon's Haxorus. Knowing I survive at least a single Earthquake, we go for a Yawn on our first turn and then Protect on our second turn to get the guaranteed sleep hacks. With Haxorus fast sleep, we set up the rocks here. I wonder if you guys saw that one coming, for of course his Charizard. Then we riskily switch into Android 19. We get incredibly lucky with Haxorus staying asleep, so we use this opportunity to hit it with a Metal Sound, and then next turn let off a Flash Cannon for that easy OHKO. Now so far, everything's going pretty well for the most part. For Rhyperior, we bait out the obvious Earthquake into Android 19, so then we switch into Cell, taking no damage thanks to Levitate, and then we exploit that juicy 4x weakness to ground with a single Energy Ball for another OHKO. Hop 2.0 really ain't liking us too much right now. Now for his Dragapult, I wasn't sure if he Dragon Dance or Flamethrower here, but I make the call to switch into Shenron, and it turns out to be a good one because he Flamethrowers, which we resist. On the next turn, we get stupid lucky by surviving a Dragon Breath to land another OHKO with Dragon Tail. That hustle ability really coming in clutch right now. Next up is Rillaboom, who I'd hoped to OHKO with an Aerial Ace, but just falls short of the KO, even with the crit. Of course. Shenron goes down here to a drum beating, but it's okay because he's granted all of our wishes, so he deserves that deep sleep. Next up, I send in Boo, who is easily able to take out Rillaboom with a single Overheat. Our White Herb resets our stats, and we're currently sitting pretty with 5 Pokemon still alive. But now, it's time for the big boy. It's Stealth Rocks does its job, but once he Gigantamaxes, all that health he just lost is basically going to come back, so I decided to play hyper aggressive by going for a Shadow Ball instead of Substitute. He starts with a near fatal max Rockfall, which is kind of okay because at least now he'll take sand damage, but our Shadow Ball barely tickles him. I decided it's not worth switching out for, so I sack Boo here to waste another turn of his Gigantamax. And then next turn I send in Krillin to waste his last turn of G-Max with a Protect. We surprisingly survive the max overgrowth, and instead of going for a Sucker Punch, which most likely would have secured the KO, I try my luck by going for a Yawn. We fail miserably, and now it's up to Piccolo, who I'm just hoping can outspeed. We go for a Parabolic Charge, and I learn we do not outspeed, and Piccolo now goes down to a Fire Blast. And now, you may think I've lost this run, based on my last two Pokemon, but I've got a secret weapon in Android 19. I send out my Metallic Boy, click the Electro Web button, and laugh my way to victory, as even through a crit, I survive thanks to Sturdy. We take out Charizard with a well-placed Electro Web, and secure the first victorious Typelocke on the channel. Let's go! Alright, so I purposely did not write any script for this part of the video, but I just want to say, if you guys are still watching, of course, thank you very much. Consider subscribing to the channel, consider liking the video. I have a lot more Typelocks planned and Nuzlocke videos and stuff coming in the future. This one took way too long to get out, mainly because of the holidays and the fact that I recorded everything all at once, and then I wrote a script all at once, and then I recorded the script all at once. So it was like, I probably should have done it in parts as I recorded each different individual video, but you live and you learn. The next Typelocke Nuzlocke's coming out. I'm gonna start doing them as I record them and as I make them. But yeah, anyways, if you're listening to all this, thank you very much. Consider subscribing, liking, and I will catch you guys next time.